I'm Rory, and basically I got a whole bunch of stuff I'd love to lay out, and I don't know if we're going to have time to do it or not, but I just wanted this to be a really fun meeting with all my good friends. So that's first on my list, and I already got that. So thank you for coming. Okay, just start with my current model of the universe, life, the universe, and everything. 42, in other words, if you're familiar with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. 42 actually is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, and we'll show you why, at least according to the current model. I am indebted for much of the nitty-gritty of this to my perusal of Rob Cox's latest book, Creating a Soul Body, Sacred Science of Immortality. He actually goes in great detail and describes the scientific dimensions of these various layers of consciousness that I've been playing with for the last 27 years or so. The other thing, we decided to call this a mystery school, in part because we're investigating the mysteries, and in large part because the archetypal calendar that unfolds from this is kind of the prototypical mystery school. As I've been studying what mystery schools have done in the past, they are basically describing this play and display of the various archetypes as they are going through their birth, adventures, and death around about the circle. So I did not know that when I first, under guidance, called what I was doing here in 1982 a mystery school. But now, 27 years later, I'm very pleased to be able to come full circle on that and actually be able to give you some of the nitty-gritty that at that time I was only capable of channeling and didn't really understand fully. Okay. When I first opened to all this material, it was because of a teacher named Carla Gordon, who was teaching a class in psychic healing or energy work at that time and it was held in our apartment, which is above the barber shop on the square. And the first technique that she gave us proved to be the one that woke me up. And it essentially was this. You guys want techniques? Here's one. This is one of my favorite techniques. 27 years later, I still use it. You want to essentially start from your middle and allow your consciousness to go up through the top of your head and go up past your crown chakra and go to the luminous or radiant center of the universe, or radiant center of the super universe, the divine heart of creation. Heart. And then as you are there, know that that's Grand Central. And basically, from there you can contact any aspect of any creation, any god, any goddess, any archangel, any flavor of creation at will at any time that you may need. And then allow that to come down through you, realizing that you are only open to divine energies, only to the good. There's only good in that realm. I'll describe why in a minute if I get around to it. Remind me if I don't, to just talk a little bit about Pundarakaksha, the lotus cube, and why the invocation of that lotus cube, which is in our puja, I believe, whether we are in purity or in impurity, anyone who speaks 3 times Pundarakaksha, 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 there is instant purity, and there is only purity. And we'll get into that, the mechanics of why that is. Pundarakaksha means lotus-eyed and lotus-cubed. Aksha means both cube and eye, as well as bead. These are Rudraksha, Rudra's eyes, Rudra's beads, Rudra's cubes. And we'll get a little bit into that a little bit later. So we're up there now. Sorry, slight detour. We're up there now in this radiant center, this place where we can connect with divinity, any aspect of divinity we wish, our own future enlightenment if we so desire, our own anything we need in terms of knowledge or feeling level, anything is already there. This is beyond space and beyond time, so if we're ever, over trillions upon trillions of years, ever going to see something, we can get it now and here from this place over our heads. And then allow ourselves to be essentially a hollow vessel or a hollow tube, and allow that energy or knowledge or blessing, whatever it is we most want, to come down through us. And as it comes down through our heads and our throat and our heart, just allow that energy to come in and bless us and heal us completely. And then feel it coming out, either through our heart or through our solar plexus, to bless our entire creation. And you can just kind of get a sense of that. Now, you can actually do this with other people, which is how we first did it, and it is absolutely marvelous what can start to happen. You can start to feel that you're accessing energy that we were tapping in meditation, only now it is actually moving. It's actually moving, it's actually flowing. You get a sense of what the absolute feels like as it's moving out into creation. And if you're working with another person doing this at some point, it's good to allow them to do a visualization, to kind of drop their shields, to be open to the divine energy, because the more receptive they are, the more you'll feel that energy pouring through you. It's very much like an electrical outlet. There's not an opening on the other end. You may not be as obvious to perceive it. Now, equally useful is a technique of drawing beneath the feet at the golden center of the earth and allowing that to flow up through you until it reaches your solar plexus, your heart point, your sacred heart. The solar plexus point is at the bottom of the rib cage, bottom of the breastbone, top of the rib cage, and it's midway between your heart chakra and your navel center, and this we call the sacred heart. This is known as the Hrit chakra. This is, I discovered this doing my researches along the way and found no data outside to back it up for about 20 years. And then all of a sudden came across a book on Laya Yoga, and this guy has gone into every text on, in Hinduism, Sanskrit text on the different chakras and sub-chakras and sub-sub-chakras, and he devotes about 15 pages to the Hrit chakra, and this is the sacred heart. So that was a nice confirmation. Not that we really need it, but it's always fun to have external backing, or what seems to be external. Okay, so drawing from beneath the feet, golden ball at the center of the earth, heart value again, loving center of the earth. Allow that to flow up as if you're a tree, kind of coming up through our legs, through our feet, through our legs, through our base chakra, sex chakra, navel chakra, and then out through the heart or sacred heart, again to flow out to all creation. Some people are much more comfortable drawing from one end than the other. It just completely depends. My sister, for example, always pulls from the center of the earth, and she's very much of a mother goddess kind of being, so she's comfortable with Shakti, the Shakti flow, which is that end of creation, whereas the Shiva end, we could say, or the father end, is more from above the head, in conventional terms. Okay, so that's a technique, and then when you are done blessing, healing all of your creation, or healing whoever is sitting in front of you, you can be open to the flavors of knowledge that may be coming. They may be coming as a feeling, or as actual bursts of information, as almost a sphere. It might be a sphere of knowledge that's there that you then have to kind of interpret and put into words. It could be any. It can be kinesthetic, tactile, hearing, touch, sight, taste, smell. Any of the senses could be involved in allowing this information to come through. And then when you're done, I would just suggest that you complete the circuit. So that if you're starting from above the head and coming down through you out into creation or into someone in front of you, then just allow that circuit to continue straight down into the center of the earth, into that golden radiant ball of love at the center of the earth, so that you are now a complete circuit, a complete column of three suns. You have the radiant sun above your head, the radiant sun at your sacred heart, and the radiant sun beneath your feet. And conversely, if you are pulling from the foot area, the elemental realm, the mother aspect of matter flowing up and through the feet and out into creation, I would then just suggest that you then continue the circuit straight up through from the midpoint again, from below your feet up through the top of your head until it anchors up at the top. So that either way you are now aligned completely. And of course, if you are so inclined and really like to play around, you can also pull from above the head and from beneath the feet and see them both meet in the middle and then spread out in a big spray of gold. All of this is going on simultaneously, so kind of pick whichever one you most most enjoy. I think we have some more people coming.
First of all, your lawyer wants to say if anyone needs any healing, then go see a doctor. Okay.
Yes, right.
But besides that,
this is not a substitute for conventional medicine.
Well, that was a great afternoon. Thanks so much. Wait, there's more?
There's much more, yes. So that was the technique that basically woke me up. Essentially, this technique, once I did this, I actually started practicing. I was very fortunate in that I was given somebody to heal that I didn't much care for in real life. I did not like her that much. This personality was not that much fun. So by going up above the head to this radiant center, I got to experience unconditional love at will. Basically, this center up here is unconditional love. So is the one beneath your feet. And allowing that to flow down through me into her. She was a marvelous Healy. She actually took in the energy beautifully. And I felt just waves and waves of love, just wave upon wave upon wave of absolutely beyond the personality love. So that was a real eye-opener for me. And it was also a real navel opener, it turned out, because after the end of that session, my voice had dropped down about 2 registers, and I was coming out of my navel center, which I had never really done before. And Carla Gordon, who was a full trance medium, very accurate, her guide said that I had cleared 2 lifetimes of karma during that particular, and that's exactly what it felt like, essentially. So I'm kind of, wow, this is great. We can tap this stuff at will, and actually, it was a marvelous thing because it was a step forward for me, because I had been sitting in meditation for 9 years and steeping in this energy for 9 years, and more or less purely, and then to actually feel it doing some good, tangibly, on all my different layers at will was a real eye-opener for me. That we can actually do this at will. And change creation. So that evening in meditation, about the last meditation I ever did, I was sitting there, and there was this golden elevator shaft kind of going up through my body, and all these beings were fine-tuning every layer of this elevator shaft up to the very top. And at the very top there were these 7 beings that were sitting around in a ring of utter bliss, utter ecstasy. And I was like, wow! This is great. And they were just laughing their butts off, figuratively speaking, and looking down, and it felt as if it was about 3 miles up, obviously it was actually right about there, but, and they were saying, we'd like to bring this energy into Earth now, if you're up for it. And I said, count me in, sounds good. And they said, you're not going to be a full trance medium like Carla Gordon. You are going, if you want to work with us, we'll be essentially channeling. And the idea is, with full trance mediumship, you do not integrate with whatever it is you're channeling, because you're going unconscious, and it's a payoff. You get more accuracy in terms of the knowledge, because it's not being filtered through your conscious mind as much, but you don't ever integrate it. You don't ever integrate. You don't ever consciously get to know that those are part of the self. And our job with me, is to integrate, if that's your wish. And I said, yes, that sounds good to me, because obviously these are just aspects of my own self, and I would like to get to know those better and operate. So I basically started to channel, which means I would go up there and sit there in utter ecstasy and have other people just ask me questions, basically anything that I didn't know the answer to. And it was very rough at first. I was, when the energy would come through, I'd find myself bouncing around the room. I was actually it was like triggering that kind of flying technique. And just laughing and bringing that out. But over time, it got more and more obvious and more ordinary. And so one of the things that those beings were bringing through at that time was a mystery school. They said, we would like to start a mystery school here, and that's what started in Fairfield in '82 in that apartment. So long story short, this is now 27 years later, and we are now reinstituting that. And 27 is a really, really magical number, and I'm about to show you why.
Nakshatras?
Yes, 27 nakshatras, 27. Okay, so let's just begin with, I'll move out of the way one second. Okay. We've already talked about this quite a bit in the past, but let's start here again. Any given unit of one or wholeness, we can say is, if we look closer at it, actually 3. So we've got essentially what I was just speaking of in terms of the channeling, or in terms of that technique, which you do not have to call channeling, if you just call it contacting your future self. Contacting the logos, contacting perfection, contacting the immortal. Essentially what we're talking about is beyond space-time, and it's the immortal. And we are, whoops, thank you. All right, so essentially what we're talking about here is the triple sun, which is, you can say there's a radiant center here, radiant center here, and a radiant center here. Okay, so we are looking at these energies down here as being matter energies or Shakti energies. And these energies up here as being more spirit energies or Shiva energies, this being your sacred heart again. So we can see here energies, Shiva wants to come down and meet Shakti, Shakti wants to go up and meet Shiva. The two of them meet together at the center point and splay out as Brahma, this middle point, Middle point is the sun within. Brahma is the sun within, so we have essentially Shiva sitting up here, Brahma here, Vishnu down here, or the mother energy down here, depending on which way you want to look at it. So that Vishnu essentially is the coalescence of matter, and then that, we call that a dark hole or black hole in a sense, and when that gets small enough to a singularity point, it lights off. Whoa, that's me, I am Brahma, and then that in turn can fountain out as energy and go around about and actually eventually connect across this equator here, which is essentially the gap between the energy half and when it becomes matter. And this gap is also the self, because it's bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest. And let's see, essentially what we're talking about here is getting larger and larger and larger going this way, and smaller and smaller and smaller going this way. Rob Cox describes this in great detail in his book, Creating the Soul Body. We're talking about powers of 10, essentially. And there are actually 108 layers of consciousness, so that we have this 108 bead necklace. This necklace is essentially 108 chakras, or 108 layers of consciousness that we actually have. And we basically aren't always aware of all those layers, obviously, but we contain them within us as a hologram. And the more that we explore, coming from this center point, going up into realm of powers of 10 magnifying, this center point is essentially the size of half of a thumb's width, about a centimeter. So that the first degree above the centimeter is actually 10 to the 0, which is 1 thumb. That's the person the size of a thumb that's in your sacred heart. So this is all basically going right back to Vedic texts, Hebraic texts, Kabbalah, Egyptian texts, and Grail lore. We're going to find that this is a sacred science that is actually pieces of these different traditions have retained aspects of this. We find that essentially what we're talking about here is, this is the three in one, essentially. We could call that the sort of primordial trinity, the father, the mother, and the son, daughter, father, mother, and child. Since each of these one is breakable down into 3, this same kind of universal pattern, this is the torus, the cosmic egg, it's like an electromagnetic field. Basically, any one unit is going to contain these 3. It's going to contain 2 poles and a center point. So from these 3 different units, we could say, we could break that down again and say that there are 3 within that. Okay, so that gives us 9. And that's the 9 chakras of the body as I play with it anyway. Those 9 are essentially, there's 3 chakras for the body end, 3 chakras for the soul, and 3 chakras for the spirit. Within that, we have the body of the body, the densest body. And that was what we call the foot chakra, or the feet, or the root. The next chakra up is at the base of the spine, and that would be the soul of the body, or body consciousness. That's body consciousness. That's the base chakra. Next chakra up is the sex center, and that's the spirit of the body, or the subtle body. So that's the astral body, essentially, the pranic body, the body of breath, the body of the senses, the one that we carry around with us when we go into dream state. So that's your 3 bodies of the body. Then we have 3 bodies of the soul, which we could also call the mind. And so we have a lower mind, a center mind, and a higher mind. Lower mind, navel chakra. That's the animal kingdom. Oh, sorry, I should have mentioned also that we're actually going through the different realms of nature here, at least subjectively. So that in the foot chakra, we could say we're accessing the elemental realm. In the base chakra, we're accessing the mineral realm. Elemental is even more dense than the mineral. Mineral realm is being. Its nature is to be. So that's the base chakra. Base chakra is all about establishment of... Sir?
Sorry, root chakra is what of the body? The feet is the body of the body.
Yes, densest body. Densest
right.
body.
And then the
next one would be the soul of the body, or
soul
body
of the body.
consciousness, because we're going basically matter, consciousness, or light, and energy. Matter, consciousness, or light. Oh, another thing just to mention, E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light times itself. So, you know, essentially what we're talking about here is the relativity, is this kind of matter-energy conversion. Your I am point is a matter-energy converter. Yeah, good. And so essentially you have your own little nuclear furnace going all the time, which is your inner sun.
Okay. And that's the solar?
Yes, solar plexus point. But actually, specifically, every chakra has that, since every chakra has a solar plexus or an I am point in the middle of it. So, you know, this is the center of centers is at the sacred heart, but each of these centers is a whole cosmos in itself. This is the whole thing about the hologrammatic aspect. Every macrocosm is a microcosm, every microcosm is a macrocosm. It just depends on what layer you want to look at. Get closer up, oh my God, there's a whole universe in that grain of sand, et cetera, et cetera. Or vice versa, the whole universe is a grain of sand. Okay, so let me see. So that brings us to 9. And traditionally we see 9, the texts will always talk about the 9 openings of the body. And this is normally been understood as the 2 ears, the 2 eyes, the nostrils, the mouth, the sex, and the anus, which just never really made much sense to me because I just wouldn't count these 2 nostrils as being 2 separate openings. But anyway, I definitely see it as being the 9 wells within the body, the 9 openings, the 9 doorways within the body. These chakras are doorways to different strata of creation. Okay, so moving from the elemental in the foot chakra to the physical in the base chakra to the astral or the subtle body in the sex chakra, that's the vegetable kingdom. Vegetable kingdom is able to reproduce, so is the sex chakra. So that's why we're moving now from just being, which is the mineral kingdom, up to reproduction, which is the sex center. So base to sex, being, okay. Next realm, animal kingdom, anima. Anima means soul. We're actually in the lower soul when we're in the animal kingdom. This is the concrete mind. This is the mind that conceives of space-time, sees itself as being inside space-time. This is the densest of the mind bodies, the densest of the soul bodies. Next one up. So that.
If you don't mind, can you give us the whole chart with the body, soul, and the body?
Sure. Foot, body of the body. Base, soul of the body. Sex, spirit of the body.
Okay.
Navel, body of the soul. Solar plexus, soul of the soul. Soul and sun, interesting connection there. Now that keeps going back and forth. Heart, spirit of the soul. Throat, body of the spirit, densest spirit. Third eye, soul of the spirit, spirit consciousness, spirit aware of itself. And then crown, spirit of spirit. Okay, so that's your 9 chakras. Well, it's just a scheme, but it works pretty well. Now, just to completely, okay, so yeah, right. Animal kingdom, navel center, power. A lot about fight and flight in that realm. Who's better, who's worse? We're actually seeing lower discrimination here, lower ability to discriminate. Actually, it's gathering the senses and it's discriminating. It's actually saying, am I in trouble here or can I kill it? Basically, who's better? Who's better, me or you? So it's like all that kind of thing. Next center up is the solar plexus point. This is the inner ruler. This is the human kingdom. The actual true human kingdom. It's the center of the whole thing. Actually, it's the uniting between all the matter end and all the spirit end. Okay? Next realm up we could call the ancestral realm. This is the realm beyond space-time completely. That was causal body, solar plexus. Next one up, Buddhic realm, finest feeling level. We're actually up into the realm of air now. Again, these are all the different elements as well. So we've got smell and earth in the base chakra, water and taste in the sex chakra, fire and sight in the navel chakra. And then this kind of in between, which is just the I am, the causal. And then air, finest feeling level, heart chakra. And then love, all that kind of thing. Movement. And then the throat chakra. We can call this the elven realm or the angelic realm. It's the creative realm, essentially. This is the first vibration, the actual vibration coming from the universe out into the world. Up here in the third eye is we can call that the pleroma, the realm of the archetypes in a sense. It's kind of the storehouse of all of the patterns before they actually get manifested, the blueprints of creation. And then up here is kind of the, you could say the first establishment of any kind of intelligence at all. Could call it the logoic, I guess. This would be the monadic in the third eye, atmic in the throat. Okay, so that's a quick thumbnail sketch.
Aren't there like several?
Oh yes, this is my next, you're just exactly right. Each of these chakras has 9 chakras inside of them. So that basically, again, because each one is a wholeness, it contains all that inside. So that gives you 81 sub-chakras within the body, if you want to go that fine. I mean, of course, there's even finer if you want to go inside each of those. But we're working now with 81 primary chakras. And so those 81 chakras actually take you from the center point, expanding out 41 layers this way, and 41 layers this way. Okay, so that actually, because you're starting with a bead that actually contains both layers, one on either side of it. So that gives you 81 actual layers. And then there's this odd gap. And that odd gap contains 27 more layers in it. So that's the layers of the logos itself.
I'm sorry. Can you give us the list of the chakras with the different which bodies which? Just because you kind of mentioned that, but I didn't get the whole thing.
Oh, sure. Okay. Elemental, foot chakra. Base, physical. Sex, astral. Navel, mental. Sacred heart, causal. That's the one where you actually are taking credit for creating your universe. Credit, either way you want to look at that. You're actually taking responsibility for the fact that your desires, conscious or subconscious, are creating your universe, is one way to look at that. Heart is Buddhic realm, finest feeling level. Throat is Atmic or Atmic realm, which we could call creative, vibratory space. This is the vibration of space itself. And then the third eye is monadic, seeing the monad. This is actually sort of where the witness hangs out. And then the crown would be Adi or possibly Logoic, although I'm a little leery now about calling the crown the Logoic because it turns out that the Logoic is actually the realm of the archetypes, which is in between. It's in this gap. It's in this kind of golden band, actually beyond space-time, that we see as being up here and down here. But space curves, and so we're actually seeing this. We're actually curving out to this place here that actually is the gap. So that's, in a sense, the, actually, it's a little bit different than that because there's actually another little being right here and right here. Here's the radiant self, a radiant sun, essentially, and then there's a self point just above that and just below the radiant self, and that is the same. That self point is the actual center point of 27 layers. You could say there are 12 layers and then 13 layers in the central one and 13 layers in the central one. Or you can say there's 12 and then the central 3 if you want to divide it up that way. So you can say there are 12 archangels in that sense and 12 elementals down below your feet, and then the self would be the, actually then there's a being that you could say is the father above that and the mother below that, and just beyond those is the self itself, which is bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest. 27 nakshatras, 27 points in this. Tom Trainer has brought up a number of times when people have had a hard time understanding my explanation of the 27 nakshatras, to look at it as a three-dimensional chessboard. And he's right. This is absolutely perhaps one of the best ways to look at it. It took me a while to really see that. I had to actually read. I mean, I knew that it was right, but there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. I don't know. Let me just, okay, so let me just get rid of this for a second. Or get rid of it, period. He'll be right back. No, really.
Oh, no!
Okay, so let's go a little bit into the mechanics of the 27 logoic, the crystal. This is the diamond body of the logo. So basically, once you get through these 81 layers, either 41 up or 41 down. Oh, and the other thing, let me just mention, as you're expanding out, you're going from the sun, the radius of the sun. This is what Rob Cox has brought out beautifully, these layers. 81 layers, 41 layers up, 41 layers down, completes manifest creation in powers of 10. When you actually start out with 10 to the 0 at the center point, 10 to the 12th layer up, so if we're starting at the center point, we're going to have 9 mini chakras, or 9 mini layers in that center point. Is that right, Chip? Yeah. Okay, so we're starting right here, and then we're going up 1 layer, 2 layers, 3 layers, 4 layers, and each of those is like 10 to the first, 10 to the second, in other words, 100 times as big, 1,000, 10,000, etc., 100,000 times as big. And this goes back to the scriptures where they say each layer of heaven is 10 times the size of the one before. It's 10 because we have 9 chakras in here, and the 10th one is thou art the 10th, thou art the gap.
Wow.
So you have 1 through 9 in there, and then this 0, kind of 0 thing, which actually marks between these 1 through 9, the next 1 through 9, so we can say that's 10. The next one would be 20, the next one is 30, etc. So you actually, that's how you can see that the gap of, say, that 10th, thou art the 10th, is a summation of all the 9 prior to it. The 10 contains the 1 through 9, but it's the totality of them, and it's the introduction to the next totality of 9. So because being 10, it actually contains, as it's the first to move into that 1's column over there, the 10's column, it actually contains 11 through 19 in potential, you know. So then the 20s actually literally contain 11 through 19, and contains a potential 21 through 29, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my understanding at the moment of the wondrous aspects of Thou Art the Tenth. Many thanks to Bruce for bringing that one up. It was pretty awesome. So there's actually a gap between each of these layers is in itself also a gap, but we're going to count the biggest gaps, which are essentially in between the layers of 9 or between the layers of 81 as we actually get down into finer and finer looking at these things. Okay, so so the first, let's see, where are we? 0. So first layer, second layer, third layer, fourth layer, fifth layer completes the solar plexus chakra. And then the 9 more layers above that, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 5 to 14 to 23 to 32, basically, are your layers that actually are the boundary lines between your different chakras. Okay, so we've got, let me just make that a little bit clearer if I can. 3, 4, 3. Okay, so 5 up, 5 down, and 9 is 14, and 9 is 23, and 9 is 32, and 9 is 41. Okay, so that's your 10 to the 5th, 10 to the 14th, 10 to the 23rd, 10 to the 32nd, 10 to the 41. Actually, it's actually going to be a little bit smaller than that. It's going to be 10 to the 4th, 13th, etc., because we're starting with 10 to the 0. But it gives a general idea. And then 10 to the minus 5, 10 to the minus 14, 10 to the minus 23rd. Am I screwing something up here? Yeah. No, I guess it's right. 10 to the 0 here. Yeah, 5, 9, 14, 23, 32. Did I forget one? It's fine. Oh, this is 9. Right. No, sorry. This is 14. There we go. 23, 32. That's more like it. 41. So 42, the answer to everything, is one layer past 41. You've actually gone up all the way through. Now the nice thing that Rob is mentioning here is that 10 to the 16, so this is your solar plexus point, this is your heart, throat, third eye, and crown, and navel, and sex, base, and foot. So the whole point is, with enlightenment, when we're not yet awake to the fact that we're nothing or everything, we're identifying with a point. And that point will be running up and down somewhere in this scale, up into the heavens, down into the so-called hells. The hells are where you get shredded, basically, into smaller aspects of yourself. And the heavens are where you get to embrace more and more. And they're both inside us, but we don't know that until we wake up. And when we wake up, we know in theory, yeah.
They're happening simultaneously.
Yes. Yes, and that's the thing about being awake, is that for the first time we're able to actually move in both directions simultaneously and realize that the bigger you get, you're getting smaller at the same time, because really it's just the cell. There's this unchanging mess, and if you get 10 times as big, you just automatically become 10 times as small also.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because if you've got 10 of something, you've got tenths of something, so you're both. So you're actually, it never really changes at all, but we learn how to play in this scale and kind of fine-tune ourselves to play with it. And this is very exciting to me because for years and years and years I've been feeling intuitively this is the galactic realm, this is the universal realm, super universal realm, etc. And Rob actually gives the radial lengths of these different things, and they do tie in precisely with these different chakras. So that, actually almost precisely I should say. 10 to the 12th is right in here in the heart center, so you've got that blazing heart as your sun. 10 to the minus 12th, that's the heart center. 10 to the minus 12th, down the navel chakra, is the layer of nuclear unification. So we're actually talking about that kind of I am core. When you actually realize, so this is actually what I would call post-Brahmanic unity. You're actually moving to that level. 10 to the 16th, right in here, is the heliosphere, which is the furthest reaches of the solar system as a whole. And so that's just up into your throat chakra. You're actually moving now into what I call particle. As you move from the heart into the throat, you're moving into particle awareness. This is the understanding that you have all kinds of little beings inside of you that are dependent on you for you're their God, essentially. So we're actually moving into what I would call post-Brahmanic God consciousness. You're actually moving into the solar system, so you're knowing that you have all these planets dependent on you. Again, this is subjective. We may not be aware at all that we are the solar system, but we're aware that we have particles inside us that need our attention. Okay, so that's what I'm saying, is that the fascinating thing here is that we've been going through this subjectively right along without necessarily knowing that we're actually resonating with different elements of the cosmos. And that's pretty exciting to me anyway, because I've pretty much given up hope that any of this was ever going to connect with science, and it actually does. So the moral there is, screw external validation, do what you do, and it may take 27 years, but eventually science will catch up with you. Anyway, that's not necessarily the moral at all, but anyway, it was kind of funny. Okay, so 10 to the 12th, 10 to the 16th is just up into the throat chakra and down into the sex chakra. So that's the solar system as a whole is 10 to the 16th centimeters, or 10 to the 15th. I keep forgetting to subtract 1 because it's starting at 10 to the 0. 10 to the minus 16th is electroweak unification, and that's in the sex chakra. And I've always kind of felt the sex is electromagnetic in nature because the electrical, so it's kind of, well, it's pretty obvious. You've got the electrical, you've got the magnetic. Let's get together. Boom.
Explains everything.
It does, really. In fact, there's a whole bunch of stuff on that in terms of the archetypes, which I'm not going to get into at the moment, but I can try to remember to. Okay, next level out. So the solar system will take you up into the lower reaches of the throat, and then from that throat chakra right up into just where it connects with the eye, you've got the galaxy. So basically the whole throat chakra up into right about there, actually the galactic arm is normally given as being the very bottom of the 9 chakras of the eye, which would correlate right with your tear ducts essentially, which is why the galactic arm is represented as a tear of God. The Egyptian, in fact in Sanskrit,
That's right.
there's that, and then there, that tear of Horus there, or Cyrus, whichever, is one of the arms, the spiral arms of the galaxy. And in Sanskrit, Varsha actually means both tears and galactic plane. So, and Rob goes into detail on all these aspects. 10 to the 12th is the 12 Adityas of the sun, which is how the Vedic people were kind of giving you the formula that 10 to the 12th, or 12 layers up is the solar radius. 10 to the 16th is the 16-fold person in the sun, the Sadashi Kala Purusha. So that gives you the actual solar system. Next up is right at the bottom of the third eye, is 10 to the 24th. That is the galactic arm itself. And 10 to the 23rd is the kind of the farthest reaches you can get before you get to that. Oh yeah, here's another fun thing. 10 to the 0. First letter of the Sanskrit alphabet is Ka. This is the baby soul in Egyptian. The very first of the enlightened soul that's just aware of itself and all potential, but hasn't really recognized anything further yet. Ka, first letter of the Sanskrit alphabet. Ba is the 23rd letter of the alphabet. That is the soul that is now expanded to the galactic realm. Actually, the 10 to the 24th, which is the actual galactic arm, is Baha. I'm going to say my idea, Ba and Ba. Those are kind of the two edges. Ba is the bottom, top of the throat. Baha is the bottom of the eye. Okay, next up is 10 to the 28th. And at that point, you are right in the middle of the third eye, and you have reached the end of the visible universe. You're up to what we call the Hubble sphere. This is La, Kabbalah. Got it?
Yeah. We were going there.
Yes, we were.
I could feel that one.
Yes, Kabbalah. La is is Indra's universe. La is the symbol for Indra, and Indra is the far reaches of the 28 heavens and 28 hells. So that's basically we're going up, we're going down. Oh, and let's see, 10 to the going downward, we had 10 to the 16th is electroweak unification. Next one down, 10 to the 24th. This is a fun one. Dark matter unification. Okay, so when you're actually working on galactic generation, turning the galaxy, 10 to the 24th up, you're also working on dark matter precipitation at 10 to the 24th down, which explains why we had that whole brouhaha, at least, and you were picking up on a lot of that, I noticed, Dan, in that Wednesday night satsang group that we had, when you were talking about the snake, the venom, all that. And basically what we're talking about here is in the Puranas, when the galaxy is first being churned, it's an ocean of milk. Galactos actually means milk, so it's like, the Milky Way and all that. When the galaxy is first being churned by the gods and the demons, basically this is Krishna consciousness at this point. We're up here in post-Brahmanic God consciousness, the kind of culmination of Krishna consciousness. You see everything as being either for you or against you. And you decided to put yourself with a certain element, which is you, and then there are beings that are not for you, and those are the demons. And we know it's a game deep down, but there's still this kind of belief to a certain degree, I'm going to side with these guys a little bit more than with those guys. And when we do that, we get the gods and demons, and they're all like churning out the ocean with this big snake. Venom gets released, and we find the dark matter. It's actually called tamas poison. Comes out of the ocean of milk, so that nobody can get anything good out of it. And what this dark matter is, what we've done here is we've just shifted over into the I am, the third eye. We've just gone over into the third eye, the bottom of the third eye. So that's the witness, the I. And at the bottom here is this dark matter, which is not I. Okay, so the polarity there is we've got some aspects which are me, and other aspects which are now in my base chakra, i.e. my poop, that I'm going to throw out and basically smear you with and say, that's you. That's you. Okay, so how do we get out of that? I thought you'd like this part. We're getting into this is dark matter. So the only way out of this is to go up 5 more layers from 10 to the 28th to 10 to the 32nd, which is basically the 5 faces of Shiva. At 10 to the 32nd, we now have, 10 to the 20, 10 to the 20th, 10 to the 32nd, right, is to basically finish off, I think I got that wrong. Oh, the other thing, La, the vowel right after La, which is at 10 to the, 10 to the 28th, is 10 to the 29th is Va, which is Varuna. Varuna is the reddish one who draws a noose, essentially, and it's another aspect of Rudra, or Rudra, the red one. But that's basically the culmination of Shiva in a sense. What we're doing here is we're moving past the visible universe into the red shift. And so that's the reddish one that it kind of draws a noose on what we can go beyond. So that's, as we're just passing over the middle of the third eye, and beyond that point we're going into darkness. So essentially we've gone into a dark night of the soul. And again, we're actually talking here about a sequence of 27 from 27 nakshatras from conception to dissolution 3 times over as we're going through these 81, if we want to look at it in terms of going from the smallest all the way up to the largest. So we actually have 3 potential dark nights of the soul, 3 potential deaths, and then 3 potential awakenings into the clear light after that. The first one we could say is kind of the dying of the ego, when everything we liked in the outer world sort of shatters, crumbles into dust. Next one would be kind of a dying of our unification. The first one is being, the next one is dark night of consciousness, and the last one's the dark night of bliss. So that unification where everything's all the self, that has to go also, and that in turn turns into bliss. And then finally, even the bliss one, we die by going through that and realizing the bliss barrier and realizing we're no longer bound by that. And at that point, we really do come out the top. This is just one model. I mean, obviously, we are already at all these different places, but it's just a matter of, at least for me, this is how I discovered these different potentials more consciously than I have been. But as I said, you can tap this stuff at any time. You know, anytime you want to do that triple sun, you're tapping this stuff because we're already on the whole span. We're never were anything else. But this is just one way to get to know it. Okay, so let's see, where were we here? Okay, oh yeah, 10 to the 32nd versus 10 to the 33rd. 10 to the 32nd is the outermost edge of, 10 to the 28th, going up the universal radius. 10 to the minus 28th is grand unification. So that's also in the base. And this is the grand unification is, in my understanding anyway, the secret to gravity and levity. And that ties in directly with light speed. Because again, at this end, at 10/28, we're talking about attaining the speed of light. The other way down, we're talking about gravity. So if we really want to levitate at will, we dematerialize. It's just that simple. And at least that's my understanding of it at this point. I'm open to understanding more eventually. But yeah, once we attain and surpass light speed, we do have the ability to dematerialize consciously. Or we are realizing we're doing that consciously, either way. Okay, so 10 to the 32nd is the very top edge of the cosmic egg. And at that point we've come to right here, our cosmic egg, our skull. And 10 to the 33rd down, 10 is Planck's constant. That's the smallest possible unit in which matter can be divided. And so we call that superunification, beyond grand unification. And that is between the base and the feet, as it is between the crown, the eye and the crown at the top. And then we get, from 10 to the 33rd to 10 to the 41st, we get 9 layers of death, because we're crossing the actual ocean of death at that point. And the experience is when you're kind of pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. This gets clearer and clearer each time you go through it. And the basically the solid melts into the astral, which melts into the fire of the mental, which burns off everything. And you're only left with the dust and ashes in the heart chakra, ashes of the burned off residue of the universe, and then that blows away, and then there's only space, and then that flattens out, which is really kind of freaky, and then that leaves only the master, the witness, the higher self, the ego, and then that dies, and then all that's left is the transcendence, or pure intelligence. And what we're doing is we're unwrapping the process of creation of the unfoldment of the 9 prakritis, or 8 prakritis, and then the intelligence. And then when that's completely done, and you're only in intelligence, you know, and as it's crossing the, each of these again is a 9, a chakra of 9. Remember, so anyway, it gets a little complicated because it depends on what scale you want to look at. But immediately following that, you've crossed over into immortality, meaning you have now cognized the paradoxical whole that you always were. And the beautiful thing about that is, again, as we're going up and up and up, or down and down and down, we're actually also going out and out and out until we meet at the other point. And when we meet out there, we realize, oh my God, that's because it turns out that layer of 27 is actually structured in consciousness as opposed to being or bliss, which the poles were structured in. So as you're going out, you realize that what's out there, the uttermost reaches, is the same as what's in here. And at that point, you start to actually internalize that which was only above or below you, and you realize that all the archetypes actually are your tools for creating your universe. So you actually then come back here and unfold the archetypal aspects of the self as the creator. So that's kind of like universe administration, or being your own Raja, or whatever you want to call it. Okay.
Well, thanks a lot.
Terrific. So yeah, then we have a bunch of layers in the actual logoic, and I don't know how much more you guys want to go into it. Ha and La. Up here is the 33rd letter, which is Ha. So Ha, yes, that's the final. Realizing that you've now just traversed the cosmic egg. You know, you've just completed.
So aren't there chakras above that too?
Yeah.
They're going up the Antakarana. And all
Yeah,
that.
you could say that these 9 here are from 33 to 41, and then there are, and that completes the death process of abstracting back to, or the uncreating process, and then there are those 27 beyond that, which are actually the archetypal layers, and those are the ones that I've been mostly playing with in terms of the archetypal calendar. And all that, and that's what the mystery schools are really mostly about, in a sense, although it's good. Okay, any questions?
Fantastic. Gives a deep perspective about the microcosm, that we are the you know, and all the findings of science as being out there, it's all really in us, in the large, I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, I just loved how he showed the different radial lengths and how that actually tied into stuff. I mean, I've been getting this stuff intuitively, but
How did he figure it out?
This guy was with Maharshi for a long time.
Oh, really?
He's always been very, very clear. His other book was very good also, the creating, Pillar of Celestial Fire. It was very good, but this one's like, thank you!
Oh, really?
Kind of inspired me to get this out, because this is like, okay, this is like the capstone in a sense. I finally sort of get why Maharshi was so insistent upon the whole science end of it. It always left me cold. I really just was not into that end of it all. I was always into the heart and the love and into the intuitive and the subtle layers and subjective stuff. And but I gotta say, it really is satisfying, you know, to find that validation far enough. You know, it only took 27 years. Not too bad. That's for me anyway. For those that wish to try that technique of going up and down, or down, it's also handy to say, you know, I open my heart to the divine heart, that I may be a vessel or a channel of divine love for this one into the universe. And then I open my mind to the divine mind, that may be a channel of divine wisdom for myself and for the universe. And I open my will to the divine will, that I may be a channel of divine ecstasy of purpose for this one and for the universe. And as I've asked, and so you have heard, and so it's done, and I thank you. And then just allow the consciousness to go up. That can be a nice sort of little reminder of what we're doing in terms of the tuning. The 27, the Logoic crystal, what does that mean? Do we care?
Over here.
Okay, I guess we care.
You tell us.
Let me just talk a little bit about how we can see the logos, or that immortal crystal. Oh, and the other thing is, when you're actually going through, say, these 9 layers of death, and kind of retracting or at any point in the, after we complete one cycle of 27, which would be at the top of the sex chakra as we're completing the cycle of being, or the top of the heart chakra is completing the cycle of consciousness, or the top of the crown chakra is completing the cycle of bliss. And we're doing this all trillions of times a second anyway, so you don't really have to worry too much about, where am I in this whole thing, because you contain the whole thing. And it's just a matter of where you want to put your attention on to learn more about, wherever you feel like being at this moment. It's not really a hierarchy, there's no better and no worse, it's pretty obvious, but still it's nice to say that, because we tend to forget sometimes. Of course, I like the top of the best, but no, I'm just kidding. I really don't, actually, it's all good. It's all good. Where were we here? Oh yeah. So basically, we can sort of see the triple chakra above the crown, which is all essentially logoic, as being 3 clusters of 9, 27. So that 27 is the triple. The three clusters of 9. We can also see that as a 3-dimensional chessboard, and like so. This is one layer. And then there are 2 more layers on top of that, which I should probably do in a different color, but I'm going to try to see if I can squeeze this in here.
Yeah, there you go.
So on. Okay, and then one more layer on top of that. So basically you've got 3 3s, which is the 27 again. This is very, I'll just simplify it. I should have done it this way to begin with. A lot simpler. Okay. Anyway, you get the general idea, I hope. It's pretty simple. Okay, so when I first woke up anyway, or shortly thereafter, I started to see that there were sacred geometries within the wholeness, that the wholeness was actually not just a plain featureless field, but that it actually had the capacity to collapse and create points within that wholeness, and each point was the wholeness itself, even more whole than the wholeness could be, if that makes sense, because by collapsing it actually takes on charm. It actually takes on personality. It actually moves us from the Brahman, the impersonal, to Krishna, the personal. It's actually one more unfoldment that we get after we kind of go, whoa, there's only that, but actually there's more than only that. And so basically, I started playing with geometry, and I started noticing that any one, if we pick one, there are 12 radii that go out from that one to kind of connect to other ones of us. And those 12 are, we could say, on this logoic cube. How much do we want to get into that? Let's see. Yeah, why not? Okay. So we could say that these 12 are these ones on the no, I'm sorry, that's not right. No, sorry, it's the ones on the edges. Yeah, okay. 12 edges to a cube. The midpoints of each of the edges gives you 12 radii, 12 points. There are actually 27, it turns out, 26 radii out from that center point to the other, to all 27. And those are, it's a little complicated, but basically those are 2 different geometrical structures that breathe through each other. One of them is what we call the vector equilibrium matrix, which looks like this from the top. Star of David. And that comes out like that. Here's your central sun. Here's your 12 points. And I'm going out from there.
Isn't it like a diamond?
It's a little like a diamond. This actually is the diamond as a whole, we could say. This is called the diamond body.
But you see it square?
Cube.
Cube?
Yeah, because it turns out that this actually is 12. This is what I was playing almost entirely with this for the first year or so, because the one of the 12 has so many, resonances and all that. But it turns out that there are also 14 faces on this. And it's called a cube octahedron because it's actually a combination of a cube and an octahedron. And the 14 faces added to those 12 give you the 26 that are actually the sum total of cells or of elements in one cell. This cube is also another one of the Sanskrit words for cube is aksha, okay, aksha, which means cube, and also it's a part of the word meaning akshara, the imperishable, and it also means the eye, as in eye. And so there are a lot of different ways to see this cube, and this is just one cell of an infinite number stacked. And I knew that from here out we could go to infinite space, but it wasn't absolutely close to packing. There are cubes, octahedra in between, or tetrahedra in between that don't allow it to completely stack close packed, whereas the cube is close packed. So the other half of this 12 is a 14 vertexed, or verticed rhombic dodecahedron, which has 14 vertices and 12 faces, and this has 12 vertices and 14 faces. So each is the out-breath of the other. And essentially, if you're kind of, in a sense, this one breathes out to create these 12, and then it comes in through the other 14. So it's kind of like a circulatory system, in a sense. And that is a really marvelous thing. Rob talks about that a little bit, where he talks about that as being both the container and the contained, that it is the vessel and also the fluid that the vessel contains. It's pure consciousness is both, and that's the Sangreal. And the funny thing about the name Sangreal, the Holy Grail, Sangreal means Holy Grail, but Sangreal means royal blood, or holy blood. So that thou art the body and the blood, and this basically means you're both. You know, that Grail archetype is the way of the alchemist, in terms of the smith or the alchemist of our 12 archetypes would see the Logoic. Each of our 12 archetypes will symbolically see this crystalline, pure light realm in terms of its desired good, so that the crystal woman will see it as a diamond body. The smith will see it as the world metal, the Holy Grail. The forester will see it as the world tree, and there's actually a world tree with 12 branches and the sacred fruits on each one, or the tree of, and the other one's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil with the 14 fruits. And then wrapped around that tree is a serpent. It's this pattern right here. This actually takes them all the colors in order. So if you have like red, yellow, and blue on that triangle down there, and violet, orange, and green here, you've got yellow, green there, etc., going all the way around. So you basically got red, orange, yellow, yellow, green, green, blue, etc., going all the way around. All 12 colors. So that snake that eats the fruit is the world serpent, or the dragon. And that's the way the warrior would see it, the red man. And Rob points out how it's also visible as a phoenix, because actually what you've got here is each of these is, remember how each of these looks like this, if you look closer, kind of a cone on either end. So if you actually visualize this as being close-packed spheres instead of with rays in between them, you're actually getting a look like that, as you're actually moving from universe to universe, or from center to center through a star system. So that's the thing. This is all frozen in one sense, but in another sense, once you realize this is here, you can travel anywhere in space and time, because this is the underlying matrix to all the space and all time. So if you, and it's all in terms of your own body. So either whether that's conceived internally or externally, it makes no difference. Had to get that in for Tom.
Final sutra of the Shiva Sutra.
Exactly, right. What you actually got here is pyramid technology. You've got a cosmic fire line going through the middle, a column of fire through the middle, and a pyramid here with a column of fire going through it, and an opening at the other end, which is another column of pyramid inverted, and so on. As you're going through space-time, you're actually going through death, birth of all these different spheres. And I've actually seen this from two sides, which is quite fascinating, to me anyway. First, actually, when I actually started playing with the 3 rays of creation, I was working with Theosophy, and I was kind of curious about, well, what would it be like if we took the three primary rays, which were described as love, wisdom, will, and active intelligence. What would it be like to fuse those 3 together? And I just sat there in meditation for a minute, and boom, I'm inside of a pyramid. And this, I mean, pretty tangibly. And down the middle of this pyramid is this column of yellowish fire. And I go, wow. And it's like my little subtext that describes everything, a little subtitle where it says, that's your DNA, and that's immortality. And you walk into that, you'll change your DNA. It's like, do I want to change my DNA? Do I know what's going to happen? Well, I already know the end of this story. I have to go into it, so I'm going to go into it. That's a little scary, I don't know what's going to happen. I walk into it, and oh, interesting, no space, no time. That same quality that you get when you're completely aligned with your solar angel, you could say. You get this kind of sense of no space, no time between your base chakra and your head. There's just this sort of sense of utter at-homeness in there. So when I walked into it, that's what there was. There was utter at-homeness. And I kind of remembered this movie called She, I think, where this woman would walk into this column of fire inside a pyramid and she would come out immortal. So I was like, oh, interesting, I wonder if I'm picking up on that. She would kind of rebirth herself every so often by doing this. So I walked into the fire, I have no idea what was going to happen, but it turns out what happens is I get pulled up through the middle of it and sucked up out the top of the pyramid, and then there's this vibrating Om. I mean, I can't do justice to it. Om. I mean, it was incredibly loud, incredibly deep, resonating with. It was the whole universe. It was my soul note, as I was told. It was like Om, and the whole thing was just vibrating like that. Like, wow, that's cool. And so I figured that was the end of that. Opened my eyes, and I was done. And the next day I thought, but there's more to that. I think I got to milk that experience a little bit more. So what would it be like if I merge those three rays? And boom, pyramid, column fire, go up the middle, boom, go through the column. I realized there was a portal vibrating there this time. So I go through the portal, and on the other side of it is a cluster of beings around the central 12 beings, all different colors, around the central 13th, which I kind of knew was me, even though it was down there and out here. It's like, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And the knowledge came was, this is your creative council, essentially. This is what you use to create your world with. So essentially what we're talking about is I was going from, say, the end of this one up through here, and then sucked up through, and at the top of that pyramid, here is your creative council. This is your 12 rays. That's the center point of this cube. So that's all that really happened. That's why we often have a pyramid with an eye at the top of it. Essentially that eye is the eye of the Aksha again, which is the middle point of our cosmic cube. Okay, so that's the pyramid technology. So what we can do is we can basically, so that was my experience of it as an initiate. And much, much later I found that there was some interesting stuff in Masonic lore which threw a lot of light on this. In terms of the whole raising to a master in terms of the third degree. In terms of Masonic lore, they have this ritual to raise you to a master. And I don't know how much of it they actually, but it was very clearly based on this stuff. On some point, somebody knew what they were talking about, which is interesting considering there are 33 degrees and to become a master, the 32 degrees of masonry, and then the honorary 33rd, which is actually the one just past your skull and all that. So they're definitely remembering some of this material or recognizing it. Okay, so to become a master, there's this whole thing about 3 ruffians that come up and basically demand the sacred word from this master mason, the sacred password that would allow them to be master masons also. And their names are Jubala, Jubalo, and Jubalum. And if you take the last portion of that, I did not come up with this myself, I read this in somewhere. I think it was Percival or something. If you take A, O, you're actually talking about the 3 elements of Om. And so basically, when I was asking about those 3 primary rays of creation, I was asking about, without knowing it, what would it be like if I merged A, O, and Because when you merge A, O, and you get raised to become a master mason. That was the other thing. When I saw this Council 12, it's like, now you're a master. Oh, okay. A baby master maybe, but a master. Because you're able to create. You're able to consciously co-create. Before that, when I was awake, it was like, I'm not really a master. I don't know what I am. I'm just, it's like, I'm somewhere. I'm doing pretty good. I'm awake. I'm a baby. I know I'm going to be a master soon. It's the Ka, that Ka point, that center, that Ka that knows that it's awake, but it's got a ways to go yet to kind of explore spread its wings. So that's mastery essentially, and again, that's just the very, very first step of mastery. There's a whole lot of nitty-gritty stuff in terms of personality work and all the rest of it that I'm not going into right here. But because in terms of my personality, I'm a total. Virtually completely undeveloped. It's like I am a very odd mix of pretty good wisdom along with, anyway.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Well, thank you very much.
That's not true.
Anyway, from my point of view, as I'm looking at this moment, I see that, interesting. Pretty much of a baby soul in a lot of ways. Okay, so let me see. Where were we here? Okay, so different, okay, yes, right. Okay, so what we got is we have, above us we have we could say it's a layer of 12, which in a sense we could say is 12 petals of this kind of cosmic lotus, and then another 12 below us. Those first 12 would be our sort of archangelic nature, that first layer of the 12 plus 3 plus 12 of the logoic realm. And then the bottom layer below us, which is kind of like the base in the lotus we stand in as God, you could say, would be our elemental, 12 elementals. And then just above that would be, we could say, the father aspect, and below the elementals is the mother aspect. And then above or below that is the one that's greater than the greatest and smaller than the smallest, which is nothing else but us. Okay, so that kind of gives you an unfoldment of of a first unfoldment of logoic potential within this cosmic crystal, within this 27, we can kind of divide it up that way. Then, when we come around fully and look inside and realize, or maybe even this might happen first, it doesn't matter, that inside of us is a reflection, or is exactly the same as that logos out there, we start to realize that, oh, there's actually 3 of those inside me, and a series of 24 around those also. And that 3 with the 24 around it is what Rob has called, what I was starting to say is with this, when you're looking at these energies, they look like petals joining these different eye points, or they could be looked at compared to feathers. And so you have either if you're looking down through one axis, so you're kind of looking straight down, you'll see 24 petals coming off that center point, because you're actually looking down the 25th and 26th straight. So that kind of 24 petals, this is why this is called the Pundari Kaksha, the lotus cube. This is the way the gardener, our blue man, would tend to see this, because he will see it as the world blossom, the world bloom. Again, we have all these different archetypes, and these archetypes are the ones that are coming out of here, out of our inner ruler. So we have archangels, elementals, and then 12, 2 sets of 12 archetypes, one female coven, we could say, and one male coven, or one female council, one male council, to go with each of our male and female halves, and then our self itself, which is neither male nor female, which is the middle of the whole thing. So you basically have 3 different ways to kind of look at this, or 3 different ways to break this up. And then what we can see is that the 12 archetypes, we could say that the female archetypes would be the upper half, because they would be kind of polarized with the archangels. That's why the archangels, the sons of God, sleep with the daughters of men kind of thing. And then the male half would be relating to the female half of the elementals, so you kind of get that kind of polarity there, if you really wanted to get technical about it. And then the interaction between these different elementals and archetypes and the archangels are what create the rhythms of the sacred year that hopefully we'll go into at some other point. And because that's quite, or maybe even if we're interested today, but that sacred year is the stuff I've been spending most of my time in the last 27 years working with, and it's really fun and really helps me understand a lot of psychological aspects, because it's basically divine psychology unfolding in our universe. Okay, so where are we now? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, Sri Yantra is kind of interesting, because the Sri Yantra actually has a square, which is essentially the cube seen from one end, with 24 lotus petals inside it. And so that, again, is the 24 of these petals that you would see as you're looking down through one. And then it has 9 big triangles alternating back and forth, which are your different strata of your 9 chakras in any given body. And then it has 43 small triangles inside with a Bindu point. So we're basically talking about, and this is the first time this ever made any sense. Rob talks about this too, which is really nice, because the Sri Yantra, it's like I always liked it, but it never really made any real sense in terms of what I was playing with in terms of logos and stuff. So it's fun to kind of both tie into the 108. Oh, the other fun thing, 108. They're actually, we're actually talking about 81 manifest points and 27 unmanifest, and that's like or if you're, depending on which way you want to look at it, the other way around, because the grass is always green on the other side. If you're actually identifying with the external layer of manifest creation, these internal ones would seem to be unmanifest, and that's the way the scriptures tend to remember them as being. They say 1/4 of the universe is manifest, 3/4 is unmanifest. But again, once you're done, once you realize all those internal ones, then you realize, whoa, well actually that 1/4 that's outside that we thought was temporary and impermanent is actually the logos itself. So and then the whole thing kind of just collapses. But anyway. Good. Where were we? Yes, it's a story. What can I say? It's a fun story. But so do you want to? Shall I go a little bit into the 12 archetypes?
Yes.
Want to do that? Yeah. Okay. So basically, out of our center point, which is neither male nor female nor anything else, that central 27th point. You can see essentially. Oh yeah, I should also. Well, each of these is a nakshatra, and this is how the whole thing unfolded because I was working with the gunas again, which is this whole thing. Remember this? I can't forget that. We keep coming back to that, which is basically we could call this, if we're going in this direction, we could say it starts with love, which is the coalescence of matter, floods into light consciousness, and then moves into laughter, or the final ha. At Shiva's point. Good to have Shiva here. So what we got here is basically 3 different gunas, and we could call this first one 0, which is luf, or love, And remember the tennis, it's kind of interesting that tennis actually preserved that probably for reasons completely different, but there it is. It's called Luft because Luft means the egg, and that was understood in English as being love, but it really is love. 0 is love. And then 1 would be light, and so this first one we would call, from the internal point of view, we call that sattva. That's actually coalescence. And then this next one is rajas. This is the rotary rotation. And then 2 is tamas, the dissolution. But from the outside, they would be just the opposite. You've got the wholeness, you've got your nice little world here, and the whole thing starts to shatter as it starts to pull in to this black hole, which so you call that dissolution, and you call that tamas. And then again, everybody's in agreement that the number 1 is number 1, but that's a light show. And then, but then this out here would be the creation of the outermost world. So this would be actually the sattvic and the light end. So you can, it just depends which way you want to look at it. One man's sattva is another man's tamas, and vice versa. This one I just discovered also by that Wednesday night satsang chat. Fascinating. How when you're actually out here, say, and you're identifying with energy, with very high energy, and then you cross over that gap very quickly. You're not really aware of it. Then slam into this intense. You move from dissolution at the end here to conception right here, psychologically speaking. You're actually slamming into a brick wall. Essentially, you're actually moving into very dense material. You've gone from the most rarefied to the most dense, almost instantaneously. So essentially, the feeling is like you just ran into a brick wall. Somebody's resisting my flow. What the fuck? So, but
WTF.
WTF, thank you. Yes. So our immediate tendency, if we are believing that there is an other, is that other is resisting me. And so let me bite it. That's our immediate response, is to chomp on it, because it hurt us. It actually hurt us by resisting us. By slamming up a wall against our flow, it's actually actively hating us. So we bite. Got to break that open. Turns out we're biting our own ass. We're biting our own tail. And so what happens when we do that is, ow, who just bit my tail? And so you bite again. And it's like, and so, you've got this snake that's biting its own tail over and over again. And it takes somebody as clear as, say, L.B. Schreiber to point out that, it's all the self. And there's an awful lot of people here not willing to take the not self. This is the whole thing. With this layer here, this awareness of this flow, is all about point of view still, and if you're identifying with one point of view versus another, you're still going to have a subtle self and a subtle not self, and you're going to have resistance. But truthfully, there is no resistance from another point of view. From that point of view, which is totally valid, there is resistance and there is suffering. But from another point of view, which is when you step out and you actually take into account both points of view simultaneously, you realize that what was tamas to you was love to them. They were actually not resisting you at all. They were actually busy creating their own creation. That was actually the coalescence of creation all over again. And again, that's just you. Both ends are you. It's you running into your own so-called resistance, which it's really your own failure to recognize another element of yourself. And this is the one thing that I found that is very useful in terms of getting along with people on subtle levels or whatever, is everything is the self. We have to just keep reminding ourselves that everything is the self. And we see these little smudges or these little dark areas, those are also not other than our own consciousness. And they're aspects that we are failing to recognize. That's all it is. We are failing to recognize, we're failing to love that little quality, that little nugget of love. What looks like a piece of crap is actually a nugget of love. And this is part of alchemy. We actually, by paying unconditional attention to it, quit saying that's crap, and just look at it in terms of its own nature, it unfolds and shows us its gift. And it's always a gift of knowledge of the self. And that's that whole quality of moving from Krishna to Shiva, where we're actually saying, I am that. I am that. I'll take that. You don't want to be pushy. You don't want to be sophistic. You don't want to be arrogant or aggressive, whatever. I'll take it. I'll take it all. I'll eat it. Thank you very much. It's attention. It's love, whether it looks like it or not. And I eat it. And as you do that, wham! The other person that's like, calling you names or hating you, they suddenly just relax and completely the flow of love is back. And it's when you give up the need to be right and are open to the flow of love, because there is no right or wrong. I don't see myself as sophistic or pushy or arrogant, but they do. Okay, no problem. That's their right. And by accepting it, you get back to where you want to be, which is the flow of love. And Byron Katie was a really good one for teaching that one. Because boy, that whole thing about, people come up to her and say, you're such and such. So doubtless I am. Doubtless I can find that somewhere inside myself. Because that's the whole point. So if you resist and say that's not me, damn, then you got that whole snake biting the tail again. Okay, that was a little bit of a diversion. Okay, yeah, so 0, 1, 2, right. Love, light, and laughter. Matter, consciousness, and energy. So if we're actually looking at this cube, we could say, oh, well, we could start with 9, basically. You know, that first layer, which is, we could say, the body of the body, or the body of 6, where are we here? It's getting a little tricky. And just say 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2. So that's love, or body, body consciousness, or body light, and then body dissolution, or body energy. So that's the densest body of the elemental, the physical body, and the base chakra, and the subtle body, and the sex center, the astral body. Then we go to 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2. So that's consciousness, establishment, densest consciousness, animal mind, consciousness of consciousness, self-consciousness, c squared, the speed of light squared, the center point, the whole thing, hallelujah. And then the dissolution of consciousness, and that's the heart chakra. That's the subtlest of the mind aspects. And then we have 2, 0, densest of the spirit. That's the throat chakra, vibratory element of creation. And then the consciousness of spirit. That's the third eye, Shiva consciousness. And then 2, 2, dissolution of spirit in the crown. And that's that. So that's basically how that would look in terms of 9. We can then do it in terms of the 27 by just adding another. Go 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 2, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 2, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, bing, the eye again, 1, 1, 2, etc. Going on through. Okay, so then we can start to see more clearly how these cycles kind of repeat on each other, but they are actually unfolding in linear sense in terms of the 27 nakshatras. So we're starting out with conception, and then we go to prenatal waking, and then prenatal dream. Next layer would be prenatal sleep, and the next would be birth. Always the middle one, the one with the light on it, is going to be like one of the major obvious, conscious milestones. So the birth, and then postnatal sleep, and then postnatal dream, postnatal waking, again, more conscious there, and then postnatal transcendence. Transcendental being, I should say, not transcendental consciousness, because this is all the body of being. So that dissolution of being, there's 2 different aspects of transcendence here, one on either side of this gap. So we have transcendental being as the upper end of that scale, and then transcendental consciousness is the passing the threshold and the first layer of the consciousness realm, which is up here. Then we have transcendental consciousness, then CC, and then GC, and then unity, and then bing, Brahman. You know, so that again, Brahman is like a birth, and it's also like a death, because up on this top layer of dissolution, that middle one is death. So that's kind of your axis. The central vertical axis is birth, Brahman, death. And after death, of course, you have all the states before it. Basically, so we have TC, CC, GC, unity, Brahman, and then post. Brahman is the now point in one sense. So that beyond the now, we're going backwards in time, in a sense. So beyond, but recapitulating from the point of view of the wholeness now. And so we then have post-Brahmanic unity right after, and I could show you how that all works in terms of chakras if you're interested. Then post-Brahmanic GC, post-Brahmanic unity. GC is like Krishna in a sense, and then post-Brahmanic CC, which is like Shiva consciousness, and then post-Brahmanic transcendence. And then we have the whole cycle through again in terms of bliss, this time with Shiva being predominant instead of Brahma. So, and then rinse, lather, repeat as necessary, because we do this all the time. So that's basically one body of 27, and then that in turn unfolds into 3, so you have 81 basic sub patterns going on there, as that at least then tie into the various 41 layers of consciousness going up and going down. All right, did we get sidetracked? Nope. There's so many sides. Who can tell? Any questions? Archetypes. There we go. Very good. Okay, archetypes. My favorite model for understanding the primary archetypes is this one. This is the one I worked with for a number of years. This is one that if you build this one out of straws, you can really get a sense pretty quickly on how, and then assign the different colors. I found this is the only way that the colors actually work. If you find another one, I'd be curious to know that.
If you do this again, would you want me to bring a magnetic construction set?
That could be fun. That could be a lot of fun.
Using different colors.
Yes, actually, this here is a version of it. Not as clear cut as the magnetic construction, But this is basically your cluster of 12 around your central 13th. The cross actually does exist in terms of this calendar system. And since it's equal armed, I thought it would work very well for what I'm working with. So basically, if we were to take the one triangle, the red, the blue, and the yellow, that's one end. We could say that's a pole. That's the fire signs in terms of the astrological calendar. What we're talking about here is a three-dimensional version of the zodiac, among other things. And the bottom triangle would be the orange, the green, and the violet. That's what I was talking about here. Here's the orange, green, and violet, and then the bottom triangle down there is the other side is red, yellow, and blue. And in between, you've got the yellow, green, the green, blue, the blue, violet, violet, red, red, orange, orange, yellow. And those, that's it. So that's 6 around an equator, around the middle. One way to look at it anyway. Here's the yellow, green, orange, yellow, green, green, blue, blue, violet, violet, red, red, orange. So it's a little bit slanted, but that those middle ones, the 6 around the middle, are your earth and water signs. And one triangle is your fire signs, and one triangle is your air signs. And all the earth and water ones are feminine, supposedly, you know, in standard astrology, and the other ones are masculine. But obviously, we both have both, and that's just another way to try to pretend that there's more conflict than there actually is, if we feel so inclined to go that way. Okay, so our archetypes. We could say that in terms of our center point, we split out into, you know, there's that single pole of 3, and then there's 12 for each of those, around each of those outer ones. So we can say we have an inner Christ, an inner Magdalene, and then 12 apostles for each of those sexes. And it turns out that also these do play out on an actual wheel of the chakras. Surprise, surprise. Because again, everything is a pattern for everything else, pretty much. Let's see if I can, and the logo, that's definitely true of the logos, that even though it's beyond time and space and is immortally now, it also serves as a model on which we can construct space and time. And so here's your center point, here's your foot, and here's your crown, and these are your eyes. All right. Okay, so essentially we could say we have this line here is your spine down the middle. Okay, base to the 2 buttocks, sex to the 2 sexes, navel to the 2 navels, sacred heart, left breast, right breast, heart chakra, left shoulder, right shoulder, throat chakra, left eye, right eye. You could say eye chakra, actually eye chakra, and then below those would be the foot and the crown. So what we've got here is this spinal column is essentially the solstice line in terms of the sacred calendar. And so what we've got here is we've got a progression going through these different colors. If you take this right here, this same pattern, and just kind of squish it a little bit, it actually preserves this exact order. This is not actually different from that. I know it looks it, but it really isn't. Take my word for it for the moment, if you would. Another way to look at this, in other words, would be actually more spread out, so it's actually a circle like so. That's probably maybe a better way to visualize it. Okay, so these are your eyes, your throat, your heart, your navel, your sex, and your base. I think I may have missed one, but anyway. So that those pair, and pair. Okay, so those are the same as this. It's just I just squished it in a little bit to make it look as if it's more vertical than it actually has to be. Okay, so in this axis, we have the eyes up here. I was shown this by perusing a text in Egyptian, no, actually it's Sanskrit. Said something about God's left eye is the moon and right eye is the sun. And it's like, I kind of like the sound of that, and I kind of, what would that be like if we put that in terms of the chakras? And suddenly I clicked, oh my God, they're talking about, yeah, moon and sun, right. So what we've got here is Cancer is over here in moon, and Leo is over here. So this solstice line of the summer is right between Cancer and Leo, which is actually one sign off from where we have it now, which is, now it's Cancer is over here and Leo will be down here. So basically it required me to shove the equinox back to Taurus, zero Taurus rather than zero Aries, which would be in the Western astrology. And I was shown that it was permanent. Essentially, it doesn't precess with the equinoxes, which is the beautiful thing about this. This is actually our logoic structure. So if we have orange-yellow, which is the moon of Cancer in the left eye, yellow in the right, I'm looking at it this way now as if I'm actually behind my own head looking at our body. So this is our left side, this is our right side. We've got the summer solstice. So this is Cancer, moon, sun. Those are your 2 eyes. And it just works out from there very easily. Yellow-green, Virgo, green, Libra, green blue, Scorpio. This is below the equinox line. So Scorpio is moving into darkness there. Month immediately following the fall equinox. Blue and blue violet. And then winter solstice. And then violet, violet red, red, red orange, and orange. And the beautiful thing about this actually is a ladder of the planets that actually is a double helix. So that we have from the sun, we have go down to Mercury in Gemini, this is spiraling down here, and down to Venus in Libra, and across the Earth point. So we've got Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and to Mars, and Aries, and then back to, now this is interesting. This turns out this is Sagittarius, but it is not Jupiter. This took me a while longer. I'm pretty traditional, so it takes me a while. They have to bump at me, my other cells, my higher cells, have to sometimes bump at my head a number of times before I'm finally willing to listen to something different than what I've been taught. So it took me some years before I realized that there actually is a planetary mass that rules Sagittarius that has been dissolved or destroyed, and that's the asteroid belt. That's between Mars and Jupiter. So we'll call those the asteroids. I call it Dionysus or Bacchus. So that is still there. It's always eternally there as an actual planet in this system, even though its mass per se has been. This is our male sex center, so we could say that this is part of the myth of the castration of God, where you find Uranus being castrated and the seed being scattered and all that. These asteroids are his space seeds, and when they essentially they are what come in as meteorites and or thought to actually inseminate the planet. So it's a sky father kind of raining down thunderbolts. It's all about that whole Dionysian quality, and remembering that on some level anyway. Okay, then from asteroids we go to Jupiter. And so this is Jupiter, and this is in Aquarius. And then we wrap around this way to Saturn in Capricorn. And then wrap back up here to violet red, which is Uranus in Pisces. And then up to Neptune in Scorpio. And then Pluto is the other side of the Earth, and as is remembered in mythology, Pluto is the Earth's underside or shadow side. And then on out to what I call Proserpina in Taurus, and out to, this could be also called the North Node, and then the South Node, which is Isis in Virgo, and then out to the Moon, which is actually the outermost field of the solar system as a whole, which we call the heliosphere radius. So all this knowledge, in one sense, is contained within the 10 to the 16th. Okay, and then back around to the yellow. So you've got a double helix there of all the planets from the innermost sun to the outermost body of the solar system. So the sun is the most yang, the most contracted point, the centermost point, and the moon is actually the most yin, the most expanded. She's Our Lady of the Spheres. She's the one that actually contains the entire solar system as a body of knowledge. So she's actually the keeper of the Akashic records. She's the lunar sage. She's the one that remembers everything. Okay, so that's a quick scheme. So in terms of where, what these are in terms of, remember how this base chakra area was our mineral kingdom. So these archetypes are those ones that work with minerals in terms of the humans elements of them. So we have the blue violet is the female, she's the crystal mother, and then the violet is the smith or the alchemist. Next realm up is the realm of the sex center, so that works with the vegetable kingdom. So we have the blue planter, Dionysus, and he's the male electrical, the inseminating thunderbolt kind of Zeus-type figure. And then the magnetic aspect, you could call him Osiris, and she would be Nephthys, the deep. Again, depends on which religion you want to talk about. These are, there's the 12 Adityas, the 12 disciples, 12 months. Just pick a shallow structure, any shallow structure, and this is the deep structure, pretty much under it. Very much like Rob Cox's, different dimensions. They stay the same regardless of whether you're looking at it from Vedic or Egyptian or Kabbalah. And looking at different traditions will sometimes give you different angles on stuff that one tradition may have forgotten. Okay, so that's the blue planter. He's the gardener, essentially working with quick growth. Electrical, the male sex is really interested in quick insemination. And then the feminine is the slow growth, the old growth, the trees. So she's the carpenter or the forester. And this is the Pisces age, and so you can see how the symbolism of the violet red, the forester, is all about salvation and baptism, all the watery aspects, and forgiveness is all the Piscean age. And one prior to that was about animals and the ram and sacrificing the ram. And the future one that's coming up now, is all about alchemy and responsibility and the Holy Grail and all that. Okay, this kind of thing you want? Should I keep going? Okay. All right, navel center. Remember that was the animal kingdom, lower mind. Fight or flight. Basically, fight, red warrior. Flight, turquoise fowler. You know, you've got the animal lord, lord of animals, Rudra, whatever, and then the lady of birds, fowler. Again, I'm just calling these lady lord, but there are 12 of each sex, you know, pertaining to each of the center ones of each sex, but I'm just following the standard shorthand version here of just presenting you 12, balanced equally between the sexes, but actually we have 12 of each sex and a Christ and an Agilon, essentially aspects that kind of tie those together. Okay, so fight or flight, that's all about time and space. Basically, the red man is all about time, and the turquoise woman is all about space, and the time is all about anger, zeal, impatience, trying to get something done, get her done, and you know, just chop right through, executive, and then the Neptune fowler is all about flying away, trying to find a sacred place, trying to find some place that's safe, find home, ascend. So between the two of them, you get divine timing and sacred space when they are understood completely. One is anger, one's fear, essentially. And each of these has an undertone, you know, or an unappreciated element that we call negative. And once we look at it closer, we find again that ship package actually had a lot of love inside it and a great gift. So the anger is the underside of zeal, fear is the underside of safety or sacred space, et cetera, et cetera. Confusion or frustration was the purple red woman's, and that moves into connecting, forgiveness, network. Lust or lust is probably the best one for the blue guy. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it moves into creative insemination. And basically, guilt is the undertone for the Violet Smith, and that moves into responsibility. And rebelliousness is the indigo Freemason, and that moves into trickster in a good sense. Independence. Levity. We've got gravity and levity. Jupiter's guru, gravity, and she's guru, levity, the other half. He basically is the agglomerator. Jupiter's the one that agglomerates. You know, Smith welds things together, makes things bigger. She chips away. She's the one that's the sculptor. She chips away all what doesn't need to be there until you're a diamond. So she sees it as a diamond body, he sees it as the Sangreal. Okay, so moving up. So these are also our own inner castes. We actually have the artisans in the base chakra, the Vaishyas, or the farmers, in the sex chakra, the warriors in the navel chakra, and then the middle one is the rulers. And that's the one that binds them together. That's the human kingdom. In a sense, all 12 of these are actually the council of the rulers, because we're talking about the 12 human archetypes here, whereas of course there are many other archetypes as well that are not human. Okay, and then up to the next realm, this is up here in the heart chakra, the Buddhic realm. We have the red-orange high priestess and the green priest. These are all about maintaining ritual and drama and dharma. Dharma and drama. Basically, the right side of the heart is the green priest. He's Bodhidharma, the right action, ritual action, right in both senses of the word. Actually, right in all three senses of the word. You know, right, and right. Right is ritual, right is the right hand, and right as correct. And then the left-handed path is Tantra, which is the red-orange priestess, and she's all about appreciation, devotion, love, actually accepting the perfection that is in the outer and taking that into the heart that way. So she very naturally is prosperity, Proserpina, prosperity. Moving, so that's basically the priestly caste, the clerical caste. Next up is the magical caste, or the pundits, we could say, the throat chakra, the poets and the enchantresses, music and poetry. Basically poetry or naming, right naming is the orange mage, magician, and the left throat, right throat is the yellow-green enchantress, music and memory, that sort of thing. And then up into the eye chakra we have the amber sage, lunar sage, and the yellow creator. And those are the ones that are actually all about the actual containment of all memory and projecting imagination, creating. And so the undersides of some of these are greed would be the underside of the high priestess, moving into devotion. Envy would be the underside of the priest. He's the odd man out. He's the balance between the two. Libra, he sees the two opposites. He's the third one. I'm the odd man out. I want what they've got. Green man's always giving. What about me? What about me? I don't give. I don't give. Well, I'm always giving out. I'm not giving. Yeah, that's the green man. Orange. We could say this one is lying or black magic. Would be the underside of that. Not telling the truth would be the orange mage. His whole function is to tell the truth. And the yellow-green enchantress is very similar. She's denial or forgetfulness, lacking memory, forgetting memory. And then the orange yellow high priest, seer. One of her undersides is dryness. Basically, she's the teacher who gets too abstract, kind of like what I'm doing right now. And we'll find that almost always we'll get a polarization when somebody is polarizing too much into one archetype or another. If I am getting too much into dry teaching, we'll find a polarization into my shadow side opposite, which is the trickster down here. There'll be the class clown in the back of the room throwing spitballs. Kind of serving a very, very important function to kind of wake up the whole room, classroom, bring in some fresh air, because she can get a little stagnant out here, kind of containing the whole thing. And then the yellow creator, pride, is his underside. Thinks he's the be-all and end-all, and in a sense he is, because he's the mirror of the sun, but he's not the sun, he's just in the solar image. And yeah, so he tends to think he's the cat meow. And so we kind of see him as the narcissistic, solipsistic, prideful one who is so attuned to his vision that he's not taking into account the smith. On the other hand, he's kind of like the architect who has this great design, but he's not taking into account the fact that you actually need to move the pipes here. So you're going to get the smith, the plumber on the other end is going to go, these guys have no clue. Their heads are up here someplace. So this is how we start to see some of these archetypes interplay, and they're all just patterns of ourselves. And there's a whole lovely thing that I've been, as I said, I'm developing for the last 20 years or so that actually describes how these work out in their stories going around the year and underpin a great many holy days in different religions. Probably all of them if one's going to look closely enough, but not sure about that. But I have definitely found underpinnings in Christianity and Judaism and various sundry other ones. Oh, the other thing is, in terms of Bodhidharma being the green priest, the other half is Siddhartha. So it's like Buddha is actually a combination of Siddhartha Buddha and Bodhidharma. Siddhartha means perfection of wealth, or wealth of perfection. And again, when you're seeing stuff as being perfect out there, you can take it. When you see something as perfect, your heart is free to take it in unity. If you're seeing any kind of smudge on it, you won't take it in. Your heart has total integrity. So if you really want to merge into wholeness with stuff, remember that it's all perfect. And at that point, it is all of a sudden inside of you. You have actually absorbed it. And that's also part of the key to prosperity, because prosperity has a lot to do with integrity, which has a lot to do with recognizing that everything is perfect. And so that's that. Right, any questions, comments? Good. Okay.
Great.
Took a little shot.